The March 18th meeting of the Weare Board of Selectmen. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know why I'm sitting down. First thing on the agenda is to swear in new elected officials. Guilty. Guilty as charged.
Oh,
You're good.
am I okay?
Good. Shuffle. Ow. And no. Please repeat after me. I, John Meany, do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm.
Solemnly. Now you get me.
Do
Blame
solemnly
Ricky.
and sincerely
Sincerely swear and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent on me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a selectman according
as a selectman according
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my ability,
agreeably to the rules and regulations of the Constitution
agreeably to the rules and regulations of the Constitution
and the state of the law, and the law of the state of New
and
Hampshire.
the law in the state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome back another 3 years.
Always waiting for this that state your name.
You have to sign it.
Where?
You sign it where it says election official. He signs it up here.
And
I figured I had to sign it somewhere, but I wanted him to sign it first.
Personally, you have to sign here.
I have to sign, yeah.
And then Ricky signs the election official and date.
There you go.
Excellent.
They make it so complicated.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we want to do board positions now?
We can do it later.
Okay.
I don't know if you're gonna have a lot of
Board
questions
positions?
tonight, Ricky,
Okay.
or not, about the police chief's position.
Okay.
I don't have any further information, so next week we can,
Okay.
I'll have more information next week for anybody that's interested in that part.
Okay. We'll move on to public comment.
Good evening and thank you. I'd like to be the first publicly to congratulate Jack Meany on his next 3 years.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Jack. I would also like to explain why I ran for selectman and 3 principles of reasons why people asked me to run. First, townspeople want more transparency. Transparency is not going to a department and asking for a piece of paper. Transparency is having as much information and material as possible on public view. The material could go on the town website, and it could be a hard copy available at the board meetings. The key objective to transparency is to ensure that the public has easy access to whatever the board is discussing. Equally as important, all board members should have all the information needed to discuss each agenda item well before the meeting. The town administrator's job is to prepare the full board ahead of time. Giving them all the information ahead of time enables them to digest, prepare questions, and discuss the items intelligently. They should be doing the talking and discussing at their meeting, not the town administrator. Second, there is a real lack of good organization and management and planning by the board. No goals seem to be set, no evaluations seem to be done, no timelines seem to be established, no oversight seems to occur, no standards seems to be set, no follow-through seems to occur, no review of non-publics is done. Without these things, you cannot run an effective, efficient organization, and that's what all of us want. Third, townspeople want all employees treated fairly. Treating some employees one way and others another when it comes to pay increases or on-the-job clock time or unreasonably lengthy visits during business hours isn't fair. Nor does it feel like our tax dollars are being spent wisely. Folks resent that. I hope you'll think carefully about each of these 3 issues. Changes in what the board does and how it operates will go a long way in making our town run the way we all expect and we hope for. I thank you.
Frank Campana, you were very successful last Tuesday with the majority of the voters that voted. I would hope that that doesn't really open the door for the board and give them the green light to look and seek for anything that you want to do during the year. I would hope that it doesn't send a message to the fire department specifically that maybe middle of the year they might want to give a $2, $3, $4, $5 raise again to their hourly employees. They may want to give $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 more to the fire chief. It certainly is a possibility as of the track record of last year. My comment is that I'm not going to begin to have a crystal ball or figure out why many more people didn't vote. There's roughly, and I'll use round numbers, roughly around 6,100 registered voters in the town as of last Tuesday. You know, there were 1,500 that turned out, and you know, it just baffles me why the balance of 4,600 people let 1,500 people make the decision. It's very disappointing. I don't know that I'm not suggesting that it would have changed the outcome, but I don't know if people don't care. I'm not looking for any answers. Again, it's public comment. So I think it's very unfortunate. You know, I have people that go by my house at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I presume they're going to work, obviously. And boy, I'll tell you, if I was leaving for work at that time in the morning, I don't care if I made $90,000 a year, as someone had suggested the average income in the family, or if I made $190,000 a year. I'd like to have a say on, you know, how I vote. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Frank.
Neil Kirk, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to pass out some paper.
Yep.
Sorry, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay. Those are so short. Thank you.
I got 2. Are they the same, Neil?
I'm sorry?
Are they the same?
No.
I got 2 of the same. Thank you.
Sorry. I'd like to talk to you about something which, as I understand it, you're going to be discussing next Monday, and that's the process for selecting the new police chief. The first of the sheets that I've given you is entitled Chief of Police Selection Process, and it outlines 4 things which I'd like you to consider and hopefully adopt. And the purpose of these is to make sure that when all is said and done and we have a new police chief, that it's not just the selectmen who are appointing him, but that everybody in town will feel that they've had an opportunity to weigh in. While the selectmen make the ultimate decision, we'll all feel that we participated. There are 4 things that I think the procedures need to do. First, candidates' background information. Resumes, letters of recommendation, and other public background information about each candidate whom the selectmen wish to consider for the position, but no fewer than 3, should be made available to the public online and in hard copy through the town administrator's office. No one should be excluded from consideration because of where he or she lives or because of whom he or she knows. It's important that the townspeople have an opportunity to learn about potential town leaders, such as the police chief. To the extent that any of the candidates were recommended by MRI, the background information should include MRI's criteria for their selection, a description of the scope of their search, including copies of any advertisements and publications in which they were presented, and the nature of any background checks, reference checks, and interviews undertaken by MRI. Not the content, but the nature. Secondly, interviews. At least 1 week after the candidate's background information has been made publicly available, all department heads and all police department staff should have the opportunity, separately or jointly as the selectmen determine best, to interview each candidate. These interviews are intended to allow all personnel who would get involved in work, who would be involved in working with the police chief on some level, to get a feel for the possible chosen applicant, and each applicant gets to study firsthand the people with whom he or she would be working. Thirdly, public forum. At some time after the above interviews have been completed, the selectmen should host a public forum to allow townspeople to meet and ask questions about the candidates. Fourth, the selectmen's decision. At some time after the public forum, the selectmen may offer the position to one of the candidates. Obviously, not all of the candidates may meet their criteria. Once an offer is accepted, the terms of the offer should be made public, both online and in hard copy. Any employment contract with the new police chief should be approved by the voters in a separate warrant article. I don't think we want to have a repeat of the problems we've had with contracts. And I think also a probation period would not be a bad idea for any new town official, especially one at such a high level. Those are the points that I think, or I hope you'll consider when you determine the process of selection. The second sheet that I gave you is a list of 36 questions that ought to be asked of these candidates at some point. Not all by the selectmen, some may be asked by the public, but these are the kinds of questions which candidates should be able to answer for us. And from my point of view, there'd be no harm in giving this kind of a list to the candidates so that they're prepared to answer. It's not a surprise contest. There's a lot of stuff that we need to know about the candidates and they need to know about the town. So, I hope you folks will look carefully at the process, as I know you will next week, and I hope you'll consider some of my suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Anybody else for a comment? Seeing none, we'll move on.
You left Benji 1 minute.
Benji, you've got 1 minute. Oh, come on.
I do that in a minute. Let me up there, Mom.
Sure, come on up. Let's contest him.
You can also ask the commission.
Well, real quickly, I'd like to ask and thank everybody for their patience. The dirt roads mud season. It's mud season in New England, and this is probably the worst one I've seen in 8 or 10 years. And it's just because the frost is coming out too fast. We have more frost than people think. Everybody thinks we had a mild winter. It wasn't as what they thought. And sure, John's seen it worse, but it's a bad one. So I had guys out all weekend, Saturday and Sunday. My last grader broke down yesterday, so I'm renting one today and tomorrow. They fixed one. Next one will be fixed tomorrow. So anyway, I just got my truck and truck body bids. If we got 2 minutes to go through that. If not, I'll sit back down.
Consensus of the crowd, he's got 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes to do beds. All right, thank you.
We solicited bids. We also posted it in the papers, and we asked for 3 bids for bodies and 3 bids for trucks. I will start with the trucks since that's what the body goes on. I will say to start with, we weren't sure when the build date was going to be able to come in on the truck, so I did not ask them to give me a trade-in on the truck. I'm not keeping it. I don't want to keep it, but I didn't dare trade it in case I know one company's out an entire year, so I'd had to run that truck. So I would ask you to let me just put that out for
sealed bid or whatever to sell it this summer. But the reason I didn't ask to send out bids is I didn't know when the build dates was gonna be for all these vehicles. And I didn't wanna have someone come in, you know, the nearest build date be, you know, next June, and I'm short a truck for the winter. So, if that's okay with you folks, that's what I'd like to do. If not, then I'll have to start the process over.
What was, roughly, what'd they give us last year for the,
7,000 plow wing and everything, and I had come up to plow this year, so I'm gonna rob the plow and wing off the truck that I'm selling, because
Okay.
they're worth $7,000.
okay.
I don't know about the wing's not that valuable, but.
But the front blade is.
So, three bids, the three people we, talked to and sent things out to was Western Star, Mac, and Kenworth. And Kenworth did not give me a bid. With phone calls in the dirt roads today, I didn't have time to call and ask him why, but,
No, I'll do it. I'll do it. Go ahead. You got 3 minutes.
So, the Western Star came in at 127,821 with extended warranties. The Mac came in at 147,869 extended warranties, and the Kenworth didn't send me a proposal.
Now, these specs are the same as the other two we have?
Exactly.
Okay. We've had good luck with the other two?
So far,
Okay.
yep.
Board have any comments about the truck?
Between them two, I'd just soon go with the Western Star.
Yeah, keep uniformity. So,
Yeah, and it's exactly $20,000 cheaper.
right. So the Western Star cab and chassis bid just for the truck is $120,918. Extended warranty is $6,903 for a total of $127,821. The Mac is $141,067.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. The cab and chassis alone's $141,067, and the extended warranty is $6,802 for a total of $147,869. Extended warranties. This is kind of my forte. Extended warranties are worth all of their weight in gold.
I do have that all here if you want to look at the packet.
No, trust me, I know better. With all the emissions standards that we have today, all the electronics package, there is multiple electronic devices running. If you do not know how to run a computer, you do not get in the truck repair business nowadays. It doesn't happen. So, like I said, you need to know wires, communication, and like I said, modules. So, extended warranties that he's provided definitely cover all those electronic devices, emissions components. One emissions component is worth about $5,000 alone, cash money. So, it's serious money now. We've just had one today. It put the guy out of business. He was independent, put him out of business. So, they're worth their weight in gold. Does the board have any discussion on who we'd like to award it to? All right.
I think we ought to go with the Western Star.
All right.
It's a conformity, and
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the bid for a new truck for the Public Works Department. The bid being for the Western Star for $120,918 for the cab and chassis, $6,903 for the extended warranty, for a grand total of $127,821.
I'll second for further discussion. What does the board want to do with the trade-in? Because that would have been incorporated here. I think it's a fair idea to do the sealed bid. I'd rather not send it to the state surplus. I don't think we'll get much for it there. You see the the state trucks up there go for anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. But again, every truck on the line's vital at the DPW. So I'd hate to give it away, like Benji said.
Yeah, I think a sealed
So.
bid.
I think that's the
Okay.
smart thing to do.
Okay.
We need to make a motion.
No, I think that I just wanted to clarify that because there's no trade-in number here. That's all.
Okay.
So.
And that will be built no later than August 1st
Okay.
of this year.
Yeah, the wait times are substantial. So, all right.
Second is
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Me.
All right, so the second is the plow equipment and body. I'll send this around, I'd like it back, I'll email it to you guys. It's just to prove, we did send it out, and it's got the time and dates of bid openings. There was nothing underhanded about it. Again, we solicited 3 and put it out. Fairfield, Donovan, and Tenco, which I think everybody knows their preference. However, it's nice to have better bidding, and
Well.
I only got one, so.
everybody's not that hungry.
Yes, so the truck body and plow equipment, which is everything except for the truck, plow, wing, spreader assembly, which is in the body, and the hydraulics. Tenco bid $77,817. HP Fairfield did not bid. Donovan did not bid. So we did only get one bid. Entertain a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the bid for body for the new truck from Tenco at a price of $77,817.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 5-0.
Well, thank you to the public for being patient, I appreciate it. That's just the minutes from today's opening, Jan, and then the email things just to prove that we did send emails to them.
Yeah, I did see it.
About how long would the turnaround, once the truck gets there after August or whatever?
I have a build date of 1st of September, which is earlier than last year, if it's awarded to them.
And then Tenco,
It's about a month, I think it's 80 man-hours.
Did everybody get a copy of this one?
Yeah, that one we did. Yeah, it's just that one. He only has the same copy.
Yeah, it'll be built before winter.
the body will be on
Yep.
about the same
I
time.
haven't had
before.
trouble with that, just the key is to get it done in a week, so.
Okay.
That was why I put it out early for a proposal, was that every other town's bounding on their door this week, so we got, I'll jump a week early on it, and I think
At least.
that's the only reason we're getting the truck, so.
Yeah.
And body.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing at 6:53 to hear public testimony and comment regarding the expenditure of $50,000 from the Charles and Ethel Eastman Fund for the purpose of providing financial support to the Piscataqua Land Conservancy, also known as PLC, in purchasing 204.86 acres off a mountain road, tax map 410-008.
You have two running concurrently.
Yes, we're going to run two public hearings concurrently because there's two different funds that are this money could potentially be coming from. There's $50,000 from the Charles and Ethel Eastman Fund and $50,000 from the Emma Sawyer Trust Fund. Again, both going for the purpose of the purchase of the land map 410-008, and each is giving $50,000 for a total of $100,000.
You're gonna start.
Don't all knock the door
No,
down.
you're gonna start with Tom.
We're going to start with Tom, though. Tom, we'd like just a brief introduction. And
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I may defer to Chairman Betty Straw. I believe she wanted to introduce the topic.
oh, sure. If Betty wants to introduce it, we'll let her.
And I'll speak after her.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I know everybody's pressed for time, so I will make my comments short. I'm just going to read part of the letter that I read to the selectmen for the benefit of people who may not have heard it over the air or otherwise. Purchase of the property will connect 473 acres of existing conservation land owned by PLC near Farron Pond, which abuts a tract of Weare Town Forest land. An additional Weare Town Forest is at the opposite end of the property. The property and the land immediately surrounding it has been repeatedly identified by the town as a high priority for conservation. The land is currently owned by Meadowsend Timberlands Ltd. Thank you for your consideration of this request. Elizabeth P. Straw, Noted Hall Bequest Advisory Chair. Tom?
Thank you, Betty.
Hello. I have a handout for the
Could you
audience.
State your name
Excuse me.
fully,
Thank you.
so everybody knows who you are.
Always forget that. My name is Tom Jones. I am the land agent for the Piscataqua Land Conservancy.
Thank you.
I have a handout, Mr. Chairman, for the audience. It is the Mildred Hall Trust application itself, which I shared with you all before, with two maps associated. Does the secretary need one?
You need one? Or you have one before?
You have one.
It's identical There should be 20 there. That should cover everybody.
Yep, should.
Thank you all very much for having me here. I'm very excited to bring this to you all tonight. If I may, at some point, if there may be a clarification, especially during questions, I would like to be able to point to my boss, the executive director, and have him help out, if I may.
Of course.
Thank you. One of the things I'm happy about this project is to bring a project to the town that has incredible benefits, both what the town has explicitly expressed that they would like to have happen in the town for the benefit of the citizens, and I'll talk about what those benefits are. But the neat thing about it is that this project, which is a $300,000 project, can be done without expenditure of any town funds whatsoever. And now, I'm with the Piscataqua Land Conservancy, I'll just say PLC, and we are located in the town of New Boston, but our service area, we're an independent nonprofit conservation organization. We cover 23 towns, of which New Boston is one, as is the town of Weare. So this project, as Chairman Straw mentioned, is 205 acres. It's out on Mountain Road. It is, am I supposed,
Oh, you're fine.
am I doing fine? Okay.
You're okay.
Sorry, standing in front of people. 205 acres out on Mountain Road, owned by Meadows End Timberlands Limited. And the really nice thing about this property is that to the north end, if y'all will look at the maps, to the north end of it is the Bartlett Town Forest, Bartlett Brook Town Forest. And then on the southern end is PLC's Fair and Pond Preserve and the Fair and Pond Town Forest, the town of Weare. All those together are over 470 acres of conservation land, and this will connect them. And a lot of the things I'm describing will also come to play in terms of the funding that was received for it. And so what it does, it protects from the very source of Bartlett Brook all the way to the Bartlett Brook Town Forest, about 4,700 feet of Bartlett Brook and a lot of really cool wetlands. And this project, along with Bartlett Brook Town Forest, will protect 88% of the entire brook. On top of that, I'm just going to talk first about the natural resources, because that also ties into the funding. Is that in addition to these, it's about 23 acres of wetland out there. And there's also been, for some of our grants, we had to get a wetland assessment done out there, and it identified at least 11 vernal pools, which we can talk about those if we want, but they're very important for funding as well. And so this became very interesting to a lot of people to get protected even outside of Weare to help with doing this in Weare. So what this project will do, you may know on Fair and Pond, there are some trails around Fair and Pond, and this all abuts Fair and Pond. So this this could be another addition. This is definitely would be open to public recreational access at all times. Currently now we have Meadows End has the Weare Winter Wanderer Snowmobile Club has and maintains a trail out there, and that would continue under this, and possibly we could get some trails expanded from Fair and Pond Preserve and Fair and Pond Town Forest. Also, this property contains 8 of the resources listed as highest priority in the town of Weare's open space and master plan. And Also in that master plan, it identifies Bartlett Brook specifically and Farron Pond in its 9 focus areas for resource protection. And the 2011 Natural Resources Inventory shows that it's the highest possible resources value. And lastly, the Conservation Commission is in full support of this project as well. And I guess, I'm sure I've left out all kinds of things. This is a $300,000 project. Now, we have received a grant for $185,000 from the State Aquatic Resources Mitigation Fund. And what that is, this is where entities, either government or private entities that get permits to do projects like highway projects are perfect examples. To go through a wetland, they have to pay into a fund that goes into either preserving, by some calculation, acreage, or restoring wetlands. So that's what this money is. And the reason why they love it so much is because there's important wetlands, and the vernal pools are especially important. And so we've raised $185,000 from them, $15,000 from the Merrimack Conservation Partnership, and we are asking for $50,000 from the Mildred Hall Trust. And their board had approved unanimously to do so. So I'm happy to answer any questions and say stuff I may have missed. And if I may, Mr. Executive Director, is there something that I needed to add that I've omitted?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman.
Anybody from the public like to speak? Lori?
Lori Davis, Buxton School Road. I also sit on the Conservation Committee. I have heard rumors that this land that is going to be purchased, one is valued at more than our town values a particular portion. I have also heard that if there were any logging on this property, that the money would go to New Boston, and that New Boston will control all of this land. And I would like clarification on that, please.
Certainly. Well, first off, we have absolutely no affiliation with the town of New Boston, any more so than with the town of Henniker or Brookline or Manchester. So, no, that is purely rumor, and there's no point in talking about that one further.
Tom, if there was logging done, though, where would the funds go?
Absolutely. You know, PLC is a landowner in Weare. We pay taxes on that land, like every other landowner. And Farron Pond, which is right next to it, just on the north of the Farron Pond Town Forest, is currently owned in fee by the Piscataqua Land Conservancy. So, if it were logged, the proceeds after timber tax paid to the town of Weare would go to the Piscataqua Land Conservancy, not the town of New Boston. Now, I would assume the next question is, and so what would you do with those monies?
Took the words out of my mouth.
Okay. And so, of course, like any other landowner, it's up to the landowner. Now, we all know our purpose in this town, and we also have precedents that we have set in other towns. Well, only one other town, New Boston, where we had our first timber harvest. Is it last year or the year before? Year before, something. Okay, we have had our first timber harvest in the town of Boston, as well as we had Farron Pond harvested here in the town of Weare. And those proceeds go to us. Now, what we've been doing, I'm just going to leave that off.
The sponge fell off.
It still works.
To put my handkerchief on it. What we like to do is, for one thing, there's a couple things. In general, if it's there's just whatever anyone would be able to do in terms of harvest. All of our lands have a forest management plan developed by a registered forester, and according to best management plans for water quality protection. Stay away from wetlands and streams. That's just our standard stuff. We also like to take any funds from that and put it back into land conservation. If possible, back into the same area, which we're actually doing a project like that in New Boston now. So that's the idea. Also, with the $185,000 that we've gotten from the Aquatic Resource Mitigation, they put even further restrictions on setbacks from wetlands and streams, which is fine with us, because this has, we can do we are able to do a timber harvest. The proceeds after taxes are paid come to PLC. But our focus is not, we're not a timbering organization like some others may be. And especially for this project, it's not a woodlot that we're buying. This has many other values associated with it that are important to our board, mostly for wildlife habitat, wetland, especially wetland and aquatic habitat. And there's a vernal pool, if any of you haven't been out there, there's a vernal pool on the top of Boar's Head Hill on the eastern boundary with Farron Pond Town Forest. And that has the biggest vernal pool I've ever seen, and it has black gum trees, which are the oldest living deciduous tree in North America, over 400 years old, which is their maximum is like 500 years. So these are really important. So if we did timbering, we're really sensitive to what's going on out there, as well as the recreation that's going on out there. Timbering's not our focus for this project.
Who's the who's the forester that oversees the project?
I'm sorry?
Who is your forester that oversees these projects?
Well, we haven't selected one for us, but we have used Jeremy Turner, and of course he was he's been involved in making this project happen as well. We've used Jeremy Turner to do our forest management plans on at least 3 properties, Chris? I think it's 3. Mm-hmm. They seem to understand the conservation principles, as you all know.
Any other questions?
There's a second part of that.
I'm sorry.
Evaluation.
Evaluation, that's right. Yes.
Evaluation, thank you. I got excited and off track. Okay, the evaluation, please make sure I understand the question again. Could you, was it?
It's different than the town valuation. Than the assessed value.
And I don't remember actually what the town assessed value was.
I believe
but
it's 133.
okay.
132.
Okay, so here's what all nonprofit charitable land trusts have to do. We cannot pay more for a property than a documented fair market value. Now, there's the one standard way that we generally come to that, and the first thing we do, you get a third-party independent appraisal done. Just like anybody does, any real estate agent, it's the same thing. Any appraiser can do it. And so we had it appraised. It's appraised at $1,200 an acre. The price we have in this budget is $266,318. That's $1,300 an acre. So the appraisal came in at $1,200 an acre. Well, the landowner came back and now an appraisal, it's very important, but an appraiser is not a timber cruise expert. So an appraiser goes in and they've got more general categories, either great, sorry, medium, okay, average, kind of woodlot, and they put their values on it. I have no idea what they do. Now, we are also required to follow Land Trust Alliance national accreditation standards. So we have standards and specifications we have to follow, which comes into you can't pay more than the fair market value. So we have the appraisal. Now we had Meadows and Timberland, who they were able to document quite clearly with a detailed timber cruise the actual value, at least standing at the time of their cruise, the value of the timber that's out there. And they deduced that what's standing out there, they could make X dollars off of right now and then decide to sell it. So they said the property was, based on their data, was worth $1,400 an acre. We came up with $1,300 an acre, which was, according to standards, actually a deal in terms of the fair market value that the landowner was able to document. Did that answer your question? Yes. Thank you. Sorry.
Who was the appraiser that did who's the appraisal company that did the appraisal on that?
It was Scott Heath, Appraisal Services. And we have a copy of that. Be glad to talk about that.
I got a question.
Yes.
Since Meadowsend is selling the property,
Yes.
why did you only have them do a timber cruise? Wouldn't they kind of push it up a little bit for their benefit?
They have
Just
to-
wondering.
Yes. I'll try, and then I'll ask Chris on that. But as I understand it, the data is the timber cruise data is very clear, and as far as how they do it and what they show out there, and that was presented to the appraiser as well. Chris, would you like to add to that?
I don't have much to add, other than just, do I need to come up? What would I add? Well, looking at the.
You need to identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chris Wells, Executive Director of Piscataqua Land Conservancy. Pretty much what Tom said. So we had it appraised, $1,200 an acre. That was essentially appraised at being kind of plain vanilla forest land, not cut over, not absolutely prime. Meadowsend came back and said, here's our latest update of our own timber cruise. Here's what's on it. And basically, we went back and forth, and I crunched the numbers to say, okay, if they cut it at, X amount of volume, based on the volumes that they say that are out there, which I think from walking around, it's got a lot of really nice red oak on it. Oak prices have been pretty good, so it looked reasonable to us. And I think I said this to you all the last time we were here. There is sort of this ironic, it can be sort of almost an ironic situation where if you're a landowner with a woodlot with a decent, with pretty good wood on it, you can actually end up doing better by cutting it fairly hard and then selling it on for conservation, right? Your baseline appraised value will go down, but the money you're making net on the timber sale, you'll make it up that way. So, based on their information that looked good to us, I thought they had a reasonable case to say, yep, we could probably true net make 14 or maybe more if they cut it first at maybe 50% of the standing timber volume and then sold it to us at a lower appraised value.
As well as the habitat loss.
Well, yeah, and we're just talking pure numbers at this point. Yeah, no, it's okay. So that's basically the deal, is that it wasn't just, we say 12, they say 14, we'll split the difference. Splitting the difference, actually, crunching the numbers made sense. So, that's all I would really add. Is that good?
That's
Yeah, okay. I'll sit right here in case I need to jump back up.
And Tom, I have a question as well. The expenses and the revenue sheet is provided. Now, I know that PLC did the legwork to get the ARM grant and the Conservation Partnership grant. But of all these expenses, is there anything coming from the actual PLC towards this purchase of this property?
Well, that's easy. PLC has no money. We don't have any. We never have. We don't have a fund for purchasing or anything. All we can do is do our best to find the money. And in fact, there's a LCHIP application in here as well that that didn't get us any money, and that's no small feat as well. And so, does that answer your question?
That's my question.
Thank you.
Okay.
I can't help but embellish. Can I embellish a little bit? Real quick. Well,
He can't help it. Get up.
Well,
You need to get up
You
here.
He can get up.
This already, but for people in the audience too, when Tom says, "quote," we have no money, what he basically means is, well, what is the Piscataqua Land Conservancy? We are basically a pretty small nonprofit organization. We've been around almost 50 years. Our total operating budget, which is paying the salaries of 4 people total, about 3.5 full-time equivalents, plus our tiny little office space, which is 2 rooms at the back of the church in New Boston, is all of $200,000, right? That's our operating budget. So we raise that. It's like we're on the treadmill every year raising that from members and grants, etc. So that's how we pay to continue to exist. So what Tom really means is if we are out trying to conserve a piece of property, whether we're buying it outright, as we are in this case, or easements, we have to go find every dollar, right? We have to go out and raise all that money on top of what we have to raise just to keep the doors open. So that's what he's talking about. And then, in terms of money that we do have that's basically sort of sitting in the bank, sitting invested, that is money that we have to hold, we have to have for essentially literally forever. I mean, it's kind of the crazy thing about this business, is that we're committing legally to be around forever and steward these properties forever. And so one of the lines you see in here is, quote, $10,000 for stewardship legal defense. That's the $10,000 that we build into every budget for every project we do to add to that long-term pot, so that there's always going to be some amount of money. I mean, this is like, it's like, you know, endowments for colleges or whatever, that there will always be some money for this organization to be able to continue to uphold our responsibilities in perpetuity, including if whatever we have to go to court or get taken to court. So I'm just sort of trying to explain for everybody kind of what is the private land trust thing. So there you go. Sorry, that was probably more than you needed. Thank you.
Fine, thank you.
If I may add, the best question I ever had was from a 10-year-old girl, the daughter of a couple that was donating an easement to us. And she was asking about what does in perpetuity mean. So we have this easement on their land that's supposed to last forever and ever. So I tried to explain it to her, and she said, well, what about when the zombie apocalypse happens? I thought it was a great question. I guess all bets are off. But yeah, we're supposed to be around forever, at least until the zombie apocalypse.
Excellent. Yes. Come on up. Unfortunately. Let's see if we can get a mic to pass around.
Tom McCarthy from Port Farm Road. I'm also a trustee of the trust funds, so I'm really looking at the Sawyer Trust. A couple questions. One is, you mentioned that you did some timbering on the Farron Pond. How much proceeds did you get for that?
Top of my head.
Roughly, just roughly.
Sure. Do I need to stand up to answer the question?
If you could.
Sure. Off the top of my head, I think our final net was 24,000, something like that.
Okay.
And that was after we paid our whatever it was, 8 or 9% timber tax to the town. So that was our net. Again, I would have to look it up, but I think it was 23, 24, 25. And so if your follow-up question is where did that money go, I'd be happy to tell you.
No, it's because
Yeah.
the next question I have is,
Sure.
so how many years does it take every time you do timbering? Roughly. Take a guess.
Sure.
It's because this is your business.
Yeah. Well, I think we said this last time we were here as well, that PLC, until a year and a half ago, we had never actually done a timber harvest on any of our properties, ever.
So now you're starting to do that.
Well, we're sort of learning how to do it.
Okay.
But so long story short, so it wasn't the winter that's now wrapping up, but the past winter, we did a harvest at our Farron Pond piece, which is on your map, because the town was doing a timber harvest and said, you guys want to be part of this. We looked at it, said that makes sense, and we did. And then same winter, and we actually had to come back this winter to finish because last year we had that weird early mud season stuff at our Tut Hill Preserve in New Boston, which is 190 acres. And then that one, same thing. We netted what we netted. Speaking of red oak, it had a lot of nice red oak and white pine on it. So we made a pretty good chunk net on that. Town of New Boston again got 8 or 9%. Anyway, so to your question, I'm trying to remember your question. So it kind of depends on what it is you're trying to do. From a forestry perspective, I would say, for instance, Tut Hill, where we just did it, we did a harvest because it had been, the previous owners had spent literally decades sort of bringing it back from being basically, whack it completely, let it grow back for 20 years, whack it completely, to becoming a really nice sort of uneven age stand wood lot. So we just did a harvest on it, and the forester term of re-entering that lot will probably be somewhere in the next, somewhere 20-ish years. So I would assume if, and it should, everybody remember, it's if and when we did a harvest at this piece, it would probably be something similar to that. So, 15 to 20 to 25 years to get into a sustainable cycle.
So then the question I have is, if the assessed value is 133, the price is 266, then roughly how much of the 266 is timber? It must be in that appraisal.
Yeah, well, and actually, it's not in the appraisal, but it's in the timber, the timber cruise data we got from them again, which I haven't looked at in a while. But I want to say,
Just, it must
well,
be.
no, but I
Right.
just want to make sure that I don't throw out a number that's completely wrong.
No, that's fine.
There's the liquidation, the quote liquidation value, which is when you went out and cut absolutely everything, was it was all I can say off the top of my head is several hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay.
And I just don't want to get it completely wrong. Go ahead, Tom.
Council Chairman, may I speak?
I'm sorry.
Yep.
May I also say that I've, in my short time up here, I've seen town appraised values be incredibly underestimated. And I've seen town appraised values that we've lost projects because the town appraised value, we had a project in Goffstown just last year where the town assessed appraised value was $147,000. And we had it independently appraised. It came back at $64,000. The landlord said, I'll just keep it, see y'all later. And I've seen them go the other way, where the appraisal is very low. I mean, the town assessed value is very low, and you have it appraised, and you go, oh my goodness, what the heck? It's so many factors. I've just thrown that in for whatever it's worth.
No,
in this case.
and that's fine.
And I'll just add quickly to that. It is, I think, I would assume you guys have had this experience over time, is whether it's the quote full ad valorem value on a residential property, or whether it's current use values. The avatars of the world, they're throwing basically a formula at land, and so that whatever they come up with versus what it will actually appraise at a parcel specific level, sometimes it's close and sometimes it's way off, sometimes high, sometimes low. So that's the only real answer we can give you. So that is why we appraise everything that we're going to spend money on. So we have a snapshot today on a specific piece. What is it worth today? What is its fair market value?
So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine, Chris. The reason I ask it is very simple. I've explained from a fiduciary standpoint to the other three trustees that for the benefit of the town under the Sawyer Trust, which is exactly the reason, I can't speak for the other one, is it has to be for the benefit of the residents of the town of Weare. That being said, I've said to them that as long as that snowmobile trail stays in place, I am not a snowmobile person, but residents are. And any other recreational items that are in place now or should be in the future, because 100 years from now, I'm not going to be around. 100 years from now, there will be timber sales. There could be a sale of the property. So what I've said to the other three trustees is the Sawyer Trust has been around for a period of time. It's been set up for the benefit of the residents of the town of Weare. I don't see any reason why 18% roughly, or thereabouts, 50 divided by the 300,000, because I'm not going to speak for the 266. I'll talk about the 300. There's no reason why, from my perspective, that the 18% or thereabouts, reflecting the 50,000, for any timber sales, any sale of the property, and third was recreational, strictly because it's going to be for the residents. Now, I leave that up to the trustees and the select in regard to how they want to handle it, but I'm thinking about how, from a fiduciary standpoint, the Sawyer Trust was set up for the benefit of the residents of the town of Weare. I think that this conservation effort, it's beautiful. It's really great. As you just explained to me, we just started timbering for the first time. Maybe we will, for the first time, sell some property. I don't know where this is going to be in 100 years. 100 years from now, there might be a massive building here because of the way things are moving from Manchester and Boston and everything else. So before this is finalized, and I know that the agreement, the ARM agreement with the state of New Hampshire has not been finalized. But I'm, as I indicated on Wednesday in regard to the attorneys that we spoke to for the town, that anything that goes in here from the Sawyer Trust from a fiduciary standpoint should be mandated into those agreements, because if they're not, who knows what's going to happen in the future. So that's my only comment.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We have Tom.
Tom?
Mr. Chairman. And then I'll shut up. I think as to whether things should or shouldn't be done, that's up to you guys with the public hearing. But I would just like to address one thing, is that I think we've covered as far as the benefits to Weare. As far as finalizing the ARM agreement, well, the $185,000 won't happen if that doesn't happen, and there's nothing in it that would prevent us. But a really great topic came up that I thought the audience may want to weigh in on, is that sale of the property. So the PLC owns the property. We can sell it, absolutely. There's so many things that would prevent that from happening that are even out of our control, that it can't happen. One thing, first thing, is that in accepting the $185,000, the state of New Hampshire has third-party right of enforcement. And so if we and for PLC to exist as a nonprofit land trust conservation organization through our federal tax status, etc., the only way that would happen would be if we were to go out of existence, and then the state attorney general's office takes over all our lands and finds appropriate stewards to manage all the lands that we previously stewarded. The state of New Hampshire, through ARM, can come in and they will do the exact same thing. The only sale that could happen would be to another conservation buyer, like another land trust perhaps, or even to the state, or Fish and Game, or something like that.
To the town of Weare.
The town of Weare, absolutely. First right of refusal. So I just want to answer those questions. Thank you.
Bill?
Hi, Bill Bolton. I'm with the Snowmobile Club tonight, and I owe these to Sherry.
Thank you, God.
That's a map from the state of New Hampshire, and also a map from the Weare Winter Wanderer Snowmobile Club. That property has what's known as a corridor trail going through it. Corridor trails are basically the interstates of snowmobiling. Meadows End Timber is, I believe, next to the town of Weare, our biggest landowner as far as trail usage. I'm very much for the Conservancy. I'm on the Weare Conservation Commission as well. But I have a problem with the wording, but snowmobiling could continue. I would like something very concrete, and all I'm doing is asking that before we in the town put funds into this, that we have a perpetuative or whatnot use. We have to stick to guidelines, and we'd have to work and perhaps change things in the trail and whatever it takes, do it and do it right. But the word could is a very weak word. And I would like that before things do happen and funding goes into it, that it at least says shall. Or whatever verbiage could be put in there that is just significantly stronger. And other than that, I support this project, and open conserved land that's allowed to be used is a good thing for the town and the people in it.
Now, Bill, just a question, well, on the Weare Winter Wanderers part of it, do you guys already have a trail system with PLC in other places? Or any trails at all?
I think so.
I don't think we have any written
Okay.
memorandums yet. We would
Before-
have one for this property.
Before your time, just before your time, there was a lady ahead of you.
Yeah.
In New Boston, and we had a trail that actually was in place before this one. And the purpose of it was to get around the Weare Reservoir without crossing water. And it was the Lillian Sizemore property. And I still have written permission to use it and whatnot. The executive director went in and convinced her to revoke our permission. After it was done and the entire system was cut, even gone to the point of even signing it. So I have a little bit of a trust issue. And just some good verbiage here cures that issue. We do use a lot of conservation land, town land, Class 6 roads, both Deering, Dunbarton, Hawkington, Henniker. There's 100 acres, 100 miles of trail in the town.
Around the 3 towns.
Yes, yeah, and then there is, we average about 250 memberships, and a membership is generally at least 2 people, and lots of times, a full-fledged family. So it's quite a bunch of people that use it. We have on other conserved pieces in Weare got the classical verbiage was no motorized vehicles, and we have gotten that changed before funding went in to allow snowmobiles. Snowmobiles leave somewhere between a little tiny bit and virtually no footprint. When they go away, the flowers come up, the growth comes up. There's very little damage to the property.
The impact's
And
low.
Very little impact, and it does make for very good hiking trails, cross-country ski trails, wonderful ATV trails, but they're not allowed. Multiple users, and they're always, horses, whatever would be allowed, and it's kind of too bad there aren't bicyclers in here tonight, but that's an awful big group, and they certainly would use a trail like this. It's entirely, the snowmobile club can't give anyone permission to use it other than themselves, and only for what they get permission to use it for, which is snowmobiling. All other uses, that user group has to get there. They can still use the trail, but they have to get the permission from the landowner.
Yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, you guys kind of done the legwork of opening it up and maintaining the brush and stuff like that. It would make sense for them, other entities or people, to try and get permission to use it.
And one big benefit to the landowner, there's the New Hampshire Trails Bureau out of Dred puts a $2 million liability on the property, even if it's an unwanted use. A dirt bike gets in there and has an accident, and it actually covers that scenario. People fall out of the tree hunting. A lot, as long as they're listed as a property owner, that piece of property is covered, not just the trail. But it also, we become a steward of the property, Because if we don't do a good job of policing and maintaining and whatnot, we know we're gonna lose it. So you have another group out there helping with the stewardship. That's my piece.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Hey, Bill, before you sat down, didn't you end up with the rights to use the Martin property for snowmobiling? And isn't that PLC? Yeah. Yeah.
But, and just to explain that, if a local John wanted to go use that property, he would have to go to the landowner and get permission. If the snowmobile club wanted to do it, they'd have to go and get permission, and then any registered snowmobile could use it as long as they, stay on that property. But when you give permission for snowmobiling, you aren't giving it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. If it's not a qualified club maintaining it, operating it, and taking responsibility for it, then it is not open
Everyone.
to anyone.
Yeah. What's his name?
Sure.
Tom.
I'm sorry, I'm such a hog. My name is Tom Jones, after all. Those are great points. Thank you. This language could, I believe, was intended to mean of course it could continue, I think. So, very good. The deeds will be very explicit. And in fact, the Martin family easement, that was because of interaction with Bill. And that was a case where PLC went to the landowner and talked her into it and allowing snowmobile. And let me be clear, PLC is perfectly accepting of snowmobiles. As Bill said, their impact is nominal, if anything, to the land. And on our fee properties, the sign is no wheeled motorized vehicles, which allows snowmobiles. We have an agreement with the Wilton Lineborough Winter Wanderers for our Rose Mountain property. We're about to go into an agreement with the town of Brookline for 450 some acres of easement on town-owned property that has incredible trails maintained by the Snowmobile Club. So, yeah, snowmobile clubs are wonderful partners in trails and access and recreation for all kinds of reasons. So it'll be explicitly in the deed, and of course you'll be able to see it.
Chris, you want to speak?
The only thing I was going to add to it is, again, Chris Wells, PLC. Am I allowed to address the question to Bill?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I assume the club, you guys have a standard agreement that you do with landowners? Basically your permission agreement and maintenance agreement and all that?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
Because
that's what we're getting
yes,
at. Yeah.
And with user groups like Meadows, then we do it in writing and whatnot.
Yeah.
But we're allowed to do it just with verbal permission.
Yeah. Yep.
But yes, whatever agreement needs to happen, we'll.
Yeah. Because
work with it.
yeah.
I've talked to Tom about it prior to tonight. I'm all in favor of it as long as we're going to be able to use it. But
Yeah.
I just didn't like that word.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah, no, I mean, and so I would just restate, and we're stating it for the public record in a public hearing, is that it is absolutely the intention of PLC that if you got a quarter trail on there now that's being maintained by the club and to some degree policed by the club, we want it to stay there, period. And so the only if there's any fuzziness here is that we haven't had the detailed conversation yet about where exactly is the trail, so we all know where it is, and then get some kind of written agreement. And that's basically it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so again, for our perspective, it's just, we're going to be taking care of this land, we hope, forevermore. And so, is the club going to be around in 50 years? If so, the agreement will be renewed 50 years from now. But if it isn't, we don't want to be in the position where we've essentially committed ourselves to maintain this trail for snowmobiles from 50 years earlier that isn't getting used anymore. See what I mean? That's basically all. That's what this is. Thank you.
My name is Mike Boyko, and I live on Grandview Drive in Weare, and I'm on the Board of Trustees for the PLC. And there's a variety of people on the board. I think there's 12 of us maybe on the board now, and I'm the only one from Weare at this point. And I'm connected with the property because I hike around Fair and Pond. I'm glad to see that the trail goes off the town land onto PLC property. We have an opportunity here to not only serve snowmobilers, but to serve other recreationalists in the town by having such a large tract of land connected. It's not only good for the wildlife, it's going to be good for us. And the PLC, we're not in the business of acquiring land to make money or anything off of it. Our business and our focus, it's really not a business, but our focus is just to preserve the land, to make sure it stays open, to make sure it's protected. So we monitor our properties every year, walk the boundary or wherever else we think is most appropriate that year to go through and make sure that nothing is being done to damage it. And in this case is, high opportunity for wildlife to exist there. So we'd be on the lookout for anything that is done that might harm that. So I'm just speaking on behalf of it and in support of it as somebody from the PLC, but also from the residents or the aspect of being a Weare resident. And the other people that are on the board are not from Weare, but I think they're as excited about it as I am. The people from Henniker, people from Francistown, because we have a committee that looks at properties and looks at the value of each property from a wildlife perspective, recreational perspective, and everybody is really excited to see this property be preserved for the future. And when we talk about, forever, we have an insurance type system that would back us up if something happened to the PLC. So that's all I have to say on it.
Thank you.
I got a question.
You do?
Next one.
I'm Paul Dosher, Poor Farm Road, and in the interest of full disclosure, I'm a former trustee of the PLC. But I also spent nearly 30 years working for the Forest Society in Concord, doing this kind of work for a number of years. We did a number of projects in Weare, and this club has trails across Forest Society properties that I helped protect over the years. Just a couple of quick observations. I'm 100% in favor of this. This is a truly extraordinary property. 25 years ago, I was out there, and this first place in Weare I ever saw bobcat tracks. 25 years ago, before the population really rebounded to the extent that it has today. It's pretty amazing what's out there. And I know that there are hunters that probably not in the room tonight, but that consider this one of the most important places for their activity in the fall. I was interested in the discussion about appraised values and timber values. I probably read 100 appraisals over the years. And I know that appraisals are designed to ensure that we don't pay more than fair market value, but appraisal science is not an exact science. It's an estimate based upon looking at what the comparable prices are of other land in the area, and then the appraiser establishes the value they think for this based on their judgment. So there's some judgment calls in there. But at the same time, I would agree with Tom's earlier comment that most times appraisals don't agree with town tax appraisals for the simple reason that, number one, town tax appraisals can often be out of date. Number two, the appraisal firm that does appraisals of open land spends very little individual time on any particular parcel and doesn't get to know it. Whereas the real estate appraiser like Scott Heath or McManus and Nault and others spend a lot of time looking at those properties and figuring out what the comparables are for recently sold parcels of land, not just in Weare, but throughout the entire region. So I'm comfortable with the appraisal numbers. And as far as the timber crews, I looked at a lot of those too. And the Forest Society does regular forest management on its properties. And I would say that of all the timber cruises I've seen, the ones that often come in most accurate come from Meadows End Timberland. I've never seen better work than what they do. and I know the town uses them for some of its work as well, and you've made a good choice. So I can't argue with their numbers, to be honest with you. I've argued with some numbers in timber inventories before, but I never have been able to successfully argue with Meadows End that their numbers weren't on target.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Selectman Osborne.
My question's for Andy Fulton, the chair of our Conservation Committee.
You've been summoned.
I was wondering whether I came here for a reason. It's fantastic to have the opportunity to see you guys again.
My question is, and I think there's other people in this town, why has not the Conservation Committee put forth some money towards this project?
There's a balancing of the funds. The fundamental one is these folks have not come to us to request funds. Now, there might be any number of reasons why, and they could ask all sorts of questions, you know, what if and this, that, and the other thing. But we do have some funds in the conservation fund. You know, the number of different scenarios that could play out as to how those funds are best used. But this one was developed out of the interest in the PLC, who has been a trusted partner for decades here. And they've come up with a formula that basically allows the Conservation Commission to support a project while, if you will, keeping our powder dry. You know, the conservation funds aren't going anywhere. They will be employed to benefit the town of Weare. It's an open question. If it was asked of us, would we decide to ante up? And I think we have many folks here who have been on a commission or are currently on the commission, and you know, we look at any proposal for value, and this one shows great value. We look for connectivity. This one shows great connectivity. We look for healthy ecosystems, and it's all out there. So the shortest answer is it apparently wasn't required to formulate this project. And frankly, we do appreciate that, trusting that there will be opportunities and necessities where the Conservation Fund might need to be employed. One thing I was thinking about, and sitting in the back there listening, you know, seeing Tom answering some tough questions and trying to explain their interests, what their group does, and how it benefits the town. You know, grant writing is something I've discussed with Sherry, and it's something the town is struggles with. Certainly, conservation writing. I think maybe once we received a little outside support. I think with the purchase we did from Frank Ferrana many years ago, we got some state support. You know, on one hand, we can think about what PLC is asking of the town through the trust funds, through Emma Sawyer, through Mildred Hall, as an expenditure from the town, sort of being taken from the town and going to PLC in a sense. But bringing, the 185 into the town is another way I'd like to look at it and remind you, these folks have done the work on our behalf to the benefit of the town to marshal some very significant resources. Part of those little pieces of those, are generated in town. I think of one project we had with Eversource. They're doing utility work. And when they do utility work, they have some unavoidable impact in wetlands. Well, something the utilities are often asked to do or decide to do is, instead of creating wetlands somewhere in town or in the proximal to where they're taking wetlands away, they can pay an in lieu of fee. And those fees go from the utility into the Aquatic Resources Mitigation Fund. And we had one down towards Goffstown the other few years back, and we said, well, is there any way we can keep those funds in town? Doesn't work that way. It goes to the pot, if you will. It goes to the state fund. Well, these folks have done some terrific work in convincing the managers of that state fund that some of those funds and in fact much more than went for that little project near Goffstown, come back to the town's benefit. So as long as, these folks with PLC, we don't trust them, we trust the system that has set up land conservancies. They have the backup that's been spoken about. They have the will that has been demonstrated. They have a good track record with us. So we as a Conservation Commission view them as a very reliable partner. We're appreciative of their doing a job without directing or necessitating significant expenditures from the Conservation Fund. And in partnership, that sounds very good to me as a commission chair. I hope it sounds good to those who evaluate whether this is an appropriate request to honor or approve, the one that's being directly spoken of tonight. But the simplest thing is it was formulated without requiring that. And part of that might be because much of what we've done lately, not all, is looking for buyers who are looking to sell the whole lot, stock, and barrel. Instead of purchasing conservation easements, purchasing in-fee land. And this project would, in and of itself, require more than we have in the Conservation Fund to do it. So I think it's a great thing that they're doing this, and I think it's also a good thing for the town that we have some resources remaining in the kitty that through public hearing somewhere down the road would go towards a similar type project. But just remember, their work is bringing something very significant to the town. And even in nickels and dimes, but yes, they harvest timber like any other landowner. There's a fee that comes into the town, not to the town forest account, but into those revenues that are, in the general fund available to the selectmen. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Andy.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Frank?
Frank Campana, it was a thought just as Mr. Fulton was speaking. I think it's been asked before, but I don't know what it is. And you said we could do the Emma Sawyer Trust in conjunction with this?
They're two together.
The balance of each one of those, either with the $50,000 in or with the $50,000 out, I don't care.
Do we have those numbers very handy?
One was
Linda, do you have?
One was like 648,000 for Emma Sawyer, and one was like 818.
Can you, I can't write that fast.
648,000 is the Emma Sawyer one,
Okay.
roughly.
Okay,
And then around 800,000 in the Charles and Ethel Eastman Fund.
okay. And the only reason I asked that is, someone mentioned that, and I know since we've been in town, 40-plus years, we've always heard the Emma Sawyer Trust Fund. So it has done, it has provided to the town, so it looks like it might still provide for the town with that money out. Thanks.
Thank you, Frank. Would anybody else like to speak? Okay. I think we'll close the hearing then. Nobody else like to speak?
Before you go forward, I just wanted to thank Betty for getting the information to me that I asked for relative to this. Thank you.
Anytime.
Okay.
And what was that?
It was information as to like what Mildred Hall has spent out. I think I had mentioned it in the last meeting,
Okay.
that I didn't know, or, what was that available, so I can make this available to everybody if they want it.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. We'll close the hearing. I want to thank everybody for coming. Weare Winter Wanderers PLC and the residents.
From your next next step? Are you gonna deliberate amongst yourselves, or are you gonna
think so.
gather more information?
I think we're going to deliberate a little bit.
And then gather some more information.
And then
I'd
gather
like
some more information.
Get some of the
Yep.
verbiage.
Yeah, I'd like to see it in hard print
And I
before we
also
vote on it.
want to look at the assessment that was put forth in item by item. But
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think that PLC can provide that.
Yep. Run it through the town attorney.
Maybe we'll set caller ID.
Did the Anasoya group take a final vote? Because I thought the last time their vote was dependent on what the attorney said.
I don't know if they have or not. By the sounds of it, they have. By the sounds of it, anyways.
Yeah.
Because I think there would have been a
Ricky,
flag raising.
Ricky.
I like that.
Yes. Linda? So you guys still have to make up your mind, correct?
At the next vote,
At the next meeting, you will decide.
Which is?
On the second Wednesday. 10th? Hang on.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
It would be April 10th is their next meeting.
Okay. Okay. Hope the room cools off a little bit now. Getting warm in here. So, no, I think that was very informative. Kind of changed my opinion of the parcel. You know, I didn't think about the fact that the fact of how much state money was actually coming in.
185.
200,000. I mean, that's 2/3 of it. And again, PLC says they have no money, and I wouldn't expect them to have a whole lot of money. They work off a donation. They work off of tax timber, and the land that they have, and it's all for the common good of the towns.
Have in there.
Yeah.
They having a meeting.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. It's just the again, I think it's my biggest thing was this purchase of land spotty thing. Whether regardless of who owns it, the conservation of spottiness. I like the fact that this one is it has borders with other conservation land.
Correct, yes.
That land up there, up off of Mountain Road, Mountain Road, Farron Pond area. It's kind of nice to have that up there as a whole, and as much as we can put together in one parcel, I really appreciate that. And again, and PLC, it's a they have state standards they have to follow. It's not like it's just it is a private entity. Don't get me wrong, and it's a 501 nonprofit. But again, it's they're in for the common good. I think that if we change some of the verbiage in the deed to reflect properly as far as the recreation part of it, snowmobile, bikes, bicycle, walking, etc. As long as we can clarify all that in solid rather than could, would, should, I can't see why we wouldn't do it.
Just verify their assessments with the.
Yep, and like Selectman Meany wants to do, he wants to
I was
verify
going to
that.
say, I think they should provide us with a copy of the assessment.
Yep.
I think they should provide us with a copy of the, whatever
Yeah,
the
I
heck it's
agree.
called, for the forester.
Yep.
I think Laura should look at it before we make a decision.
Yep.
Because we received, what I forwarded you guys is nothing more than a boilerplate from the state.
Right.
Anybody can fill in.
Right.
And there's still a lot of blanks in the other part, too.
Right.
See what they
So
will. So
until you say yes or no, I think there's a due diligence on their part to satisfy
Mhm.
that we're doing the right thing for the town of Weare.
Right.
and also, in addition to that, like to see whatever application they filed with
Yeah.
trustees to make sure that everything is. I know they're going to look at it, but at least that way we see a
Yeah,
copy of
I
it
found
along
one,
with it.
just in a letter back to
Yep.
us, they don't have 473 acres of conservation land.
Yeah.
They own one little piece, 13. The rest is owned by the town
Town of Weare.
conservation. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Which is stated that they have 473 acres, which they don't.
They don't.
They have a small parcel.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing is 11% of that, I know there was discussion about the wood part of it. 11% of that whole acreage is water.
Mhm.
The rest does have
All
some
wetlands,
nice
yeah.
timber.
Okay.
So that's, but we heard today. I think before you guys decide on spending the 50, and you don't know what the other guys are doing till April anyway, there should be some things that.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be an information that needs to be
Yeah.
provided.
More review.
More review of information again, and it's just I don't see PLC holding it for any reason. I'm sure they have it, and they'd be very willing to share it. You know.
And I just like to see what type of, and I always call it strings, because we're involved with red tape and everything else as far as the state. Anytime the state grants you money, there's a whole bunch of hurdles and hoops that you have to follow.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
Is that, what kind of hurdles and hoops is going to be followed?
Right.
Is there some obligation on our half that somebody's going to expect?
Yep.
So.
I don't want to get caught.
No, and
Come through, and then all of a sudden they knock on our door and say, "Oh, by the way, you're responsible for this."
I don't think, because I remember when we went through, I was involved for some reason with the Mildred, when they did Martin property. And that seemed pretty straightforward when we went through it, so.
Yeah, and I think the trustees of trust funds has a pretty good grip on this as far as the purpose that they have of the funds to the benefit of the town. I think that this sounds like they're really doing their due diligence.
Took a lot of searching.
Yeah, and again, and a lot of homework, and I
But
for
that
one
family
appreciate
left
their
a
work.
tremendous amount of money to this town, for
Right.
the good of the town.
Right, right. But I appreciate, I appreciate the work that they're putting into this to make sure everything's on the up.
So are we gonna create a list, or what are we gonna do to, what do we want to?
Well, I think we should create a list of things that the board would like to see. And whether it's the board sees it or the trustees are presented it.
Okay.
I would think, like Jack said, the evaluation / appraisal.
Right.
Yeah.
The forest, the information from the forest.
Yep. Some of the state documents that they submitted to get the ARM grant.
Yeah, to get the grant.
Also,
I'd be
we'll see whatever
interested to
they
see
present.
have a copy of that, our
Yeah, the
files.
copy, yeah.
Yep.
And, I would say anything, they're still working on, the details, I think, with
Yep.
the state. So before any signature gets put on that, I
Yep.
would think that
Yep.
Laura would have her input as
Yeah,
well.
attorney input. Yep. I mean, it's a binding contract with the town. I would definitely expect her to have some kind of input on it.
And you'd also, I guess, your decision doesn't matter, because if the trustees back out, for the
Right.
They've
Emersoil
got it.
trustees,
It's a dead.
if they back out, it's dead in the water
It's a
anyway.
dead deal.
$50,000 short,
Yep.
which would really be a sad thing.
But it's not the end of the road, they just have to raise it.
Yeah,
Right.
they'll have to come in
Doesn't
from
mean
a
it
different
stopped.
side.
No,
Right. Doesn't mean it stopped. It's just,
Well,
on this
it'll
side.
depend on how long
You'll hinge us, yeah.
they want to hold on to that land and keep it for sale.
Right.
That's up to the, the
That's up to
property.
the property
owner. It may
current
not-
owner.
It may
Yeah,
not
there's nothing to
stay
do
on
with
the-
us.
Yeah.
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 And they may have some time to go raise money through other
Other avenues.
efforts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else we want to see? Anything else?
Well, I think we just really need a complete.
That covers it.
Okay. I'm gonna go off key a little here, just because we have a special guest with us.
Really? Oh.
I got a question for you.
Oh, a sixth selectman, you mean?
Yeah, no,
Shows
no,
up?
our neighboring town admin. I read in the Beacon that on the proposed warrant articles you guys actually called out individually the raises for the police and the fire dispatching contracts. What was the plan if one of those failed?
We were gonna have to find the money in the budget somewhere.
Okay.
We had ideas where we were gonna get it.
Okay.
Because of this, if you tell those ideas before the election, then everybody that doesn't like to vote for
Okay.
them will automatically
Not vote.
Vote no.
Say, well, they got the money somewhere else. It wouldn't be
Easy.
that we had the money
Right.
tucked away in a slush fund. It would mean we'd have to take away a service from someone else.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just saw that. I was intrigued because obviously, again, it comes from our budget. We put it in as a proposed number. Fortunately, the town supported us and put.
Had it in twice also, if I may just
Yeah, okay.
We had it in the regular operating budget,
Yeah.
which was requested budget, and we had a warrant article separate. So it was sort of a protective.
Okay. Yeah, it was a blanket.
If the warrant article passed and the operating budget passed, the warrant article
Will be defunct, yeah.
null and void.
Okay,
So we
all right.
protected ourselves. Fortunately, just about every warrant article and the operating budget did pass,
Okay.
except the fire station.
Yeah, again. You know, the reason I ask, I mean, it's just, again, it's a neighboring town, and, you know, I was at Dimitri's one night, and I just happened to grab the beacon, and it says, here, you know, here's your articles. Well, let's see what the neighbors are doing, you know, and you know, again, I know how much we worked on our budget, and I know how much we, you know, how we prepared it, and to see a neighboring town, the way they prepared it, it was just a question that I had. I actually had it under other business correspondence, but he's sitting right here, so. So like I said, I was gonna ask. Yeah, I was gonna ask her, but you're right here, so.
I never have this opportunity, and I want to just interject something else that's sort of pertaining to this. I and two other town administrators in the area have formed a group that meet every month. We have lunch, and we share ideas, we network, and we get more out of that. And Naomi is part of our group, and we share ideas and things like you were just talking about.
Yep.
But I've been absent for 2 months.
It's
Oh,
very
boy.
beneficial thing to do, so I want you to know
Yeah.
that she's
Yeah, we
part of
do.
it, too.
Yeah, just for you that at home, we're discussing with town administrator of New Boston, and you're selectman in Henniker, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, Peter Flynn.
Got you covered on both
Yeah, he got some, when he's going home from New Boston, sometimes he'll stop by and sit in the back corner. We see him. But like I said, again, it's nice to talk to the neighboring town just to figure out, you know, again, not that we're doing anything differently at the end game. It's just sometimes there's a little bit of a different road to get to it. So, like I said, I had that question just kind of pop in my mind, and, you know, I got the confused dog look when I looked at the warrant articles, and I just figured I'd ask, so, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the approval of meeting minutes of 3/4, 3/11. We just got
Probably
this.
should open the door.
Yeah,
If
'cause
everybody's
Yeah.
left.
We're in here?
Well,
That and.
Yeah, the thing is they closed it because they were having
They're still
quite the
out there
conversation out
talking, I
there,
think.
hooting and hollering. Maybe just crack it open, I guess.
I don't know if
They're
it's
still
still
out there
there.
talking. I
Well,
can
yeah, maybe we can ask them to
could be
move
gone
it,
by
move it
now.
on. No, I think they're all gone.
Oh, no.
No, I can.
I'll go ask them. I'll go ask them.
You can go in the
No,
other
it doesn't
area.
matter. I just
no, I'm
don't
just-
want
I'm just
someone
gonna
to
have
say
them
we have a
move
closed door
Closed
meeting.
door meeting, right?
Okay, good.
I saw the shirt when you opened the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really loud here. Thanks,
Just-
guys.
My husband and her.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, part of it was.
All right, back to business.
Thought I wanted to ask Bill.
Approval of the meeting minutes of 3/4. We just got 3/11 today, so I think we're gonna table it.
Yeah, they're fairly short, though. It was a half an hour.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
well, do we want to review it then?
We got
They
them?
were only
Yeah.
Are
the,
they here?
Yeah,
When
we
did
got
we
them
get
this
'em?
afternoon. This afternoon.
Yeah.
Online.
Yeah.
Didn't
because you
know
had
we
a
got
public
'em.
comment, you had 2 questions from the call-in, and then it closed at 7:02.
We can table them. We'll just table until next week. All right, meeting minutes of 3/4. Once again, here we go. If I go find them, I had to Google one of the words that was used. I didn't know what it was tonight, so
Okay.
I gotta go find the minutes again. I had them all lined up, and now they're gone. There they are. Anything on page 1, 3/4, March 4th?
I just had a question whether this was the chairman of the board. The chairman requested that he return.
I think it was the chairman. that
What's
I think it was the
requested.
chairman, not, did the
No,
board?
it was the consensus of the board.
It wa- okay.
Yep, and the consensus of the board requested. So, that's why I'd like to change that too.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right, so I didn't change it.
Photocopy.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, for photocopy. What are we talking about?
So on where it starts,
No, don't say that.
It says
I did-
Justin Douglas was present.
I was changing it, so you don't have to change it. You don't have to say anything.
well, no, we were gonna change it though, and she's gonna note it for change.
Oh, for what?
It was,
Oh, okay.
where it starts
Consensus of the
missed,
board.
where it
Instead
start,
of
yeah, where it
requested.
said missed the public comment period.
Yeah.
The consensus of the board was that requested.
That a return.
Yep.
Where is he?
I don't know.
I don't know.
What's that?
So, anything else on page 1?
No.
Nope.
Page 2?
Page 2,
Oh, what's what I forgot?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 8th line up from the security camera paragraph.
Where it starts originally here, Vice Chairman Meany clarified the security camera.
Yeah, but does not integrate
Okay, yeah.
to Goffstown. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down. I didn't know what commented regarding new construction.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the construction was.
Yeah, I didn't.
Was that?
Oh, in
Right here.
Manchester Police when they.
Oh, yes.
Regarding-
Oh, their new construction.
Their new construction.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Manchester.
Police regarding their new construction?
Yep, okay.
Okay. All right.
Anything else on page 2?
Nope.
3. Anything on page 3?
Just like to make a change on code enforcement replacement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12th line down.
Starts with Lauren from Avatar.
Yeah, inquired if Avatar works on deed transfers, that's all. It just says deed. Should be transfers after.
Oh, okay, I'm 3 lines up from you then. All right, so it starts with items outside of Wendy Rice's purview.
Yes, yep,
Selectman Snyder inquired if Avatar works on deed
transfers,
transfers.
yep.
Okay. Anything else on 3? 4? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept the minutes for 3, 4 as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And a comment on those minutes, and I forgot to call him back today. It's one of the things I didn't do, but I should have an answer
Okay.
for that camera integration.
Oh, that's on
It
this,
took-
that's again on this week.
Yeah, it took a little, I'll have it for the week, but it took a little bit of work for him to research it, so.
Here we go.
In between his regular stuff.
All right, we'll do the manifest, right? Manifest, yeah. All right, move to order the treasurer to sign the payroll and accounts payables checks dated March 21st, 2019 is included in the following manifest. A payroll manifest of $72,653.37 for weekly and quarterly payroll. An accounts payable manifest of $17,447.67. And a fire department accounts payable manifest of $3,519.66, which the Board of Fire Wards pre-approved before this manifest, to total $93,620.70. Is there a second?
Second.
Second with discussion. Jan and I discussed a little bit back and forth about, and this is all new ground to us with the Board of Fire Wards approving their, their own checks. Is there some way that they can just make like a ledger, like Beth does on the front that we sign, just with the checks, who to, and the amounts
Well-
type thing? Just a request to just be stapled with their
The signatures.
with their signature manifest. I think that's again fine. Just again to keep clarity between the two.
All right, so you didn't see,
We always see his amount. We didn't see where the checks went.
okay.
So again, it doesn't have to be again. We don't have to need copies of the checks. Just
See 'em
again,
when they come
just like
from
on
the
the top of ours.
Hourly pay,
You see
hours
that where it
and
comes from the
total
library?
Well,
hours.
that's no, that's payroll.
That-
Well,
They
this
forward
is
that to us.
accounts payable.
This is
right.
accounts
Oh,
payable.
accounts
We
payable.
still do the payroll.
Payable they're talking about.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, does the library do the same?
No, well, you just give them their money and they write their checks.
We're actually approving it here, so.
But we're
if
actually approving it here, so
Right,
Right,
theoretically.
yeah.
right.
So
Yeah,
I
so,
just
and what the question was, is do we do the same
Same
for
for
the
the
library?
library.
right.
What you do is you take 1/12 of their money,
And just give
and you
it-
give
come
them
and check.
one lump sum, you never see their checks.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
Because somebody writes them and somebody sends them.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
But we don't.
So-
But we don't see it on our manifest.
Right, because they don't have, the Board of Fire Wards doesn't have a bookkeeper per se.
Per se.
They just send it in.
It's- So you'd like to add a signature page?
No, not for us. Just on the top, like ours, where it has the a signatures on the back, but on the front of it lists who the check went to
Okay.
and the check amount.
You're not looking for a signature page, you're looking for the breakdown.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And we don't need, I mean, I'm not thinking that we need copies of the, like what we see. We don't, we see all the checks here.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking, it'd be nice to know where their money went. That's all.
Snell's Auto, $100.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's all.
Bergeron equipment, $500 or whatever.
Right. Okay.
That's all
Okay.
I'm looking for. So, all right, moved to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Is there enough signatures?
There is.
On everything, because there was a lot for assessing.
Yes.
Yep.
I went through them one by one.
Did you just oppose that?
No. Why would I oppose it?
I don't know.
Let's send it.
You said oppose really loudly, so.
Any opposed? Not I.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We got this from Sharon, he brought it down. We talked a couple weeks ago about going from 18% to 12, but we never voted that. Do we have to vote that in?
State law does that.
State law.
State law automatically does it? And-
Yeah, state law moved it.
Okay.
So your interest that you get off your taxes is gonna be less, so your revenue is gonna be less.
Right.
Which is
Right.
why the intention of keeping the guess on revenue lower.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I just wanted to double
Yeah.
check on that, because
Yeah.
I didn't. Okay.
Okay. Administrator's report.
I have 3 things for you to sign. First of all, there is the tax map maintenance proposal, which is done by Cartographics. I waited until town meeting for it to go through, and then, so there's 3 signature blocks on that one. There's 3 signature blocks on the one for the Access GIS, which gets you the tax cards online. There's actually, is it 2 pages to sign? Or just one?
Just one.
This has 2 pages to sign for some reason. And in doing some filing for town meeting, you guys never signed the prosecutor's agreement for the new year. But I'm gonna send it over to Lisa, because her signature's not on it either.
Is the number the same?
Yeah, it wouldn't have changed.
Okay, just wondering.
Sean brought it over in August, but we never did anything. And I was just cleaning it up and cleaning my book up for
Mhm.
town meeting.
Is there a performance review on that?
I can ask Sean that.
Yep.
It stayed the same, and there was some changes to the contract based on time needed at the office.
Okay. All right,
Some
yeah.
additional time wanted and some accountability.
Okay.
And he ran that by Laura, and she agreed to it and got put on there.
Okay.
But it hasn't been signed for.
I have no idea. So you're saying you're out? Well, he's a new one.
I'll go to the.
Yeah, right.
I'll go to the administrative report. I haven't really added anything yet. I guess I'm gonna ask the question.
Oh, boy.
I mean, during public comment, we were given a large laundry list of wants. And I don't know that that's really what we talked about with MRI, but do you wanna wait and have that conversation next week?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
on my
probably.
report.
Yeah, I would.
so-
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
digest it a little bit.
Okay.
Yep.
So that'll be for next week.
Mhm.
I believe the process has already started, and some of it is beyond.
Yes, yep.
Some of it's beyond, because that's not what we had signed up to do.
Right.
Are we gonna open this up for any public forum at all?
I would say not. That's what we didn't decide to do. We were gonna have the final candidates.
I think,
And my only comment is making all these resumes and letters public. I mean, these people probably have other jobs that the boss doesn't know they've applied for.
Right.
well,
You know, and
Some
I
of-
just think putting it on the website and making it available is really
some of that may
proper.
not be open to public information.
Right. I was going to speak to it, that other business.
Sorry.
Yeah, so.
Well, it was on my
Yep,
list,
list.
so I
Yep.
figured
No,
while
it's fine.
we were here,
Yep.
we would hit it. And we can address it a little further
Mm-hmm.
the next week, because I planned on it anyway. Next week also, you're gonna have Wendy and Bob Vazina in to talk about, I guess I'll call it code enforcement
Land use.
/ structuring, or whatever we want to do.
Flash and use.
Just a FYI, I've asked every employee to send me a list of what they do in the time allotted to each task. Because I think it's important when we get the opportunity to make some moves, if you're going to make a move.
Can we have a copy of their full job description too?
Yeah, what I'm getting back, one person gave me their job description. Well, that's fine, but there's not everything on the job description that gets done, and there was no time allotted.
Mhm.
So it was returned that, it wasn't what I was looking for. So we can do that. The reappointment of committees, last year, if you remember right, you had a couple cable committee that asked
Mhm.
why everybody had to come back if they're reappointments.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want to see everybody?
I don't think for the reappointments. I think we're.
I know you see the new people to meet
Yeah.
them and ask them questions, but do you want to see the reappointments?
No, I'm okay with it.
Because I've got a couple upstairs that I didn't put on, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't inviting them back.
Okay.
The next list, I have had some calls regarding the roof. My plan was to put it out about April 1st, because I think we're supposed to get snow again Thursday. So I figured that April 1st would be maybe a good opportunity to let everything melt dry and let people have
see
an
it.
opportunity to really go look at it.
Mhm.
So I've been told everybody to watch our website, and we would put the RFP out there on the first page. Electrical and plumbing are out. They'll be opened next week. I did not have a chance to talk to Benji about any further in the garage. He's been swamped.
Yeah, he's been busy.
Nothing else has changed, and the bell tower I'll follow up on. I did not get a chance to, because it's getting near the end of the month, and they were gonna start bringing stuff here.
I'm sure that the weather has hampered them somewhat too.
Can I ask a question about the bell tower? Pretty important.
Board? Board consensus? We're past public comment. Just a question.
Yeah.
Just ask the question, no response.
Sure. The bell tower, in the document, it explains that it's galvalume, which is steel. You people have to make up your mind as to what color patina. If it's new copper, green copper, or a brown colored copper.
Okay.
It's currently on like the stone building.
Okay, thank you.
Well, what's on the,
Stone building is pure copper.
that's pure copper, and that's oxidizing, and that will turn green eventually.
Right, right, so, right. But that is a good question. We'll have to run that by.
Also
What was
depends on
it,
what he
the-
bid it
The
for.
patina.
The color of the tin.
Of the steel.
The color of the steel,
roofing.
right,
There's 4 different patinas.
right, 4 different patinas. So,
Okay.
okay.
And that's what I asked them?
Yeah, I would ask them what they're gonna
Yeah,
use.
well, we want to know, we want we want to have the input on that,
Yeah.
because we want it to
Why don't you just
match.
tell me
What they're,
Well, I
sug-
think we want to, eventually, we would want a green patina, I mean,
to match what's
to
there.
match what's on the stone building, probably want brown up there and green next door.
I mean, it's not something you're gonna see
Colorblind
highly,
does more. It
but,
works well.
Well, it doesn't matter.
let's not go with the cheapest, all right? Let's not do that.
All right, I mean, I guess I'll ask.
Yeah, if you could, yep.
And the safety camera project, Jack spoke earlier that we'll get that wrapped up
Next
hopefully
week.
next week.
Yep.
I don't have anything more to add.
Okay.
Okay, can
And
I
we-
just speak here?
We signed a couple things already.
Well, I'm kind of confused about this.
On what one?
BIS Internet Services.
There's 2 of the same.
It's got 3 on it. That
Right,
one's
this
got
one's,
3.
this one's got 3. This
Yeah.
has,
That's all right.
Yeah, oops, I didn't sign the front, I'm sorry. My bad, I didn't see it. Okay. Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Continuation of
Oh, I
what we
didn't know
already
what
had.
was
No,
going
no,
on.
no, this is fine, I just didn't see it.
Yep.
My bad.
That's all I
so
have.
only 3 of us need to
Okay.
sign?
Yeah, by the looks of it.
Okay.
Normal work.
Hit 3. All right, other business correspondence, I got a ton.
Oh, hang on, I just got, I'm out left field here. They're gonna be down Friday, it looks like at 8 AM for the garage.
Oh, Tony and them?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what he just said.
All right,
Thank you, Benji.
get the second one? You didn't get the second one.
Oh, jeez, I'm
Yeah,
finding
we
fault, right?
we reverse now. Yeah, you found the fault, now I found your fault, perfect.
That'll make you feel better.
Okay, that's all I had, Rick.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't need non-public tonight.
Excellent.
And
That's what I like to hear.
Get a copy of houses that were,
She's working on that list. Did you get that Monday?
yeah,
Your 3-year look back?
yeah, 3-year look back,
Yeah.
yeah. Just curious about it.
All right. Any correspondence, other business
She's
from the
okay
board?
anyway.
No?
Okay. First and foremost, I would like to extend a huge thank you to the voters of the town of Weare. They were very generous with the town warrant and the schools. Again, many needed items passed through, especially the 3/5 of the road bond, the reconstruction, the fire department, the DPW. Again, very appreciated. Like I said, a lot of hard work went into those warrant articles, a lot of legwork, a lot of number crunching, and again, it reflects, and we appreciate it. Second thing I'd like to do is extend a thank you out to Steve Roberts. He did not run again for Board of Fire Wards, but he served at least 9 years, at least 9 years, most of those as a chair. And I'd like to extend a huge thank you out to Steve for his commitment to the town, and look forward to seeing how, again, see Derek and Scott return. So, and Derek's first term, but Scott's returning again. Next thing is the Beacon articles, but I'm already taking care of that. I spoke to a resident, and he has very large concern, and I took a look at it myself, and I have concern as well, with the poor drainage at Cortlandt Ave. Very poor on the north side of Cortlandt Ave. That is only about 8 to 10 inches from going over 114. The retention pond is on the other side, on the south side of Cortlandt Ave, and this resident lives very approximate to that, and said he's never seen the water that high before. So I would, and again, right now it's frozen over. All the trees are under at least a foot, if not more, of water. So I think that the drainage at the end of that Cortlandt Ave needs to be redone.
You're talking the pond, right, the little pond right by the road?
It's
114?
well, no, not the actual retention pond that's low. I'm talking on the north side.
Where the water's backed up.
Where the water's backed up. It's just sitting there. It hasn't gone down at all. And like I said, if you look in there when you drive by next time, and again, it's not something I looked at right away when I drove by, but then when it was brought to my attention, I looked at it and I said, that could be a serious problem. I mean, I understand that this is kind of an oddity, again, of a spring / winter / it doesn't know what it wants to do. Melt, freeze, and I know the ground's here, there, and everywhere is, but it does kind of reflect of where it's at. I mean, we don't have, there's no real dip in that road before it goes up to 114 for it to come down and run across, and or culvert. The culvert's behind, so like I said, I think it needs some reevaluation there. And not so much, not to say that there was error put on anybody's shoulders as far as design and or execution of what's there now. I think it's just the proof in the pudding.
Well, it's
So-
a possible problem down the
Right.
road.
So
Bring it taken care
right.
of.
So I would like to see it taken care of now, while before the asphalt goes down. If he's got to put a culvert in or whatever.
I think they're still quite a ways from doing.
Oh, I think they are too, but I just now's the time to do it rather than try and dig it up and after the town adopts everything and then it's on our dime. So I'd rather take care of that
There's
now.
also been, there's a ton of driveways that do the same thing.
Mhm.
You can drive around anywhere.
Yep. But this is a pretty large spot of water. I mean, it's probably, it's all of 8 to 1,000 feet by probably 500 to 600 wide. I mean, it's a large amount of water.
Well, what I'm gonna do is, I'm going to pass it on to Chip, who has to pass it on to the engineer.
Yep, that's fine. I think
There's
it's
an engineer involved.
I think it's a good time to look at it right now because it's
Well, they've been looking at it because they put stone in to take care of some of that mud and stuff. 'Cause
Yeah.
again, it's
Yeah, I mean, the individuals lived there a long time and never seen it that high, so. But I told him I'd bring it up, and I think it just needs to be brought forward and, like I said, checked out anyways.
Naomi's, nothing's happened with the issue with that land, the piece within that Cortlandt
Easement?
Ave, the easement?
The easement there was a lot of concern expressed by the
Concern.
Conservation Commission
Conservation Commission.
regarding the easement infringement.
Yeah.
And it
Has
was
anything happened with that? Because I think,
wasn't any of
I think there was, I don't know if it was you, Naomi, that said something about, we can't use the town lawyer now because Cortlandt Ave was,
The Conservation Commission can't
If
use
there was gonna be,
Conservation
if
Commission
there was
can't
gonna
use
be
it.
some action brought against Cortlandt Ave.
It had to be
then
from us.
Conservation Commission had to use a different attorney than ours.
Why?
But aren't they the overseer of the easement?
I thought this was ironed out in January.
Yeah, it was. And
I
and
thought
part
when
of
we
it, the
met-
post
I thought
and
when
the
we met,
markings
we
don't
were
get
done
done
with it.
until after they get done with the work.
Reason I'm saying that, because I
Yeah.
think there was back and forth, if you remember, in
Yeah, it did.
January.
And the easement.
It was to be staked after.
There was some statement as to whether or not they
I didn't know-
encroached
I
on
don't
the
think-
easement, and it was basically, they thought it was with PLC, and it's not a PL, I don't
No,
believe
it's
it was
not
a
PLC.
Not PLC. PLC
And
sells.
The easement wasn't encroached upon.
No,
so-
The owner of the subdivision owns the lot.
Right.
And we own the
And-
Conservation
and,
Commission.
No, we don't own anything, we have an
Yep.
easement.
We have an
Easement.
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 with
We're in
center of
charge
that
of the
property.
easement.
Yep.
Right.
So.
That's where we're getting away from easements is because of the difficulty in management.
Yep.
It's easier to manage your own piece of property.
I guess I thought it was done in January,
thought
meaning
so,
I thought
too.
we had had a discussion when we came in to talk about a lot of things, including the forester.
I think that was going to be a continuation.
Yeah,
That part
I
of it was a
thought-
continuation.
yeah, I thought
of,
so. I
Of,
didn't-
of more so of monitoring, maybe not action being taken, but strict monitoring to make sure, because I think there was a big pile of dirt on it last we knew.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
And if
I mean,
there's
It's just a question because
Yeah,
I,
I don't remember it. In January, I thought had moved on.
I think
but-
that was the only thing that was
The
kind of
big problem
outstanding.
with the dirt pile, as I recall, was that the dirt that had been piled up, the loam had been piled up, and some of it was on the stone wall, and that was to be removed.
Right.
Other than that, wherever else it was fine.
I think that was the contention was the stone wall.
And they
Yeah.
were gonna get to
The
it
highest
at some
contention.
point, but
Right.
at that point, coming with the winter, it was kinda hard for
Yep.
them to do that, so.
I guess I'll relook at that.
I'm
'cause
just, I'm just,
You
just
look at the
something, I don't
notes.
know why I thought
Yeah.
of that, but I was
I
sitting here
think
thinking
we
of
just wanted to keep
I think you're
a
right.
close eye on
Yeah.
that to make sure everything when it did get staked, because I'm pretty sure that was the way it was written. It was going to be staked after that it was staked correctly.
And there is an escrow account with the money in it for those boundary markers, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah, we still have
So-
his money.
And that's,
I mean, obviously the pile's still there, so I mean it's because obviously he's probably going to screen it and put it back on.
Yeah.
But obviously at that point, then we really need to take a gander at it
now
and
that
see, make
it's,
sure
now that
everything's
it's getting
yeah.
Yeah,
cleared, you had to look
yeah, I
at it again.
just
Yep.
thought about it.
The next thing was another couple residents came forward to me and did ask about the police chief search and the amount of input that was going to be welcomed as far as to the selectmen and to MRI. I myself, I don't think it would hurt for say a blanket question of what would you like to see in a police chief. I'm not saying that we need to have a board, like we have right now, where we have the for the officers. But it may not hurt to have a suggestion bucket of what would you like to see in a police chief, and then read them. And also, and I think that it would go across from the public as far as their input. I mean, the public is the one paying the foot in the bill, and it may not hurt. Again, same question from the employees and department heads. Again, because they're going to work with that individual as well. But more so of a just a question of what would you like to see in the incoming police chief, and just leave the question at that.
From all employees and all?
No, I wouldn't say all employees, but I would say Chief Azina, Director Knapp, Naomi, maybe Maureen, and anybody that's going to be working directly with the chief. I think it would be probably welcomed. And again, just a very very casual question of what would you like to see in a police chief, not 100 questions, not 10 questions, not 3 boards of interviewees or anything like that.
4 sentences written up.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is and we we did receive this these questions from Mr. Kirk and the selection process. Again, some of it I question the legality of it. But the other thing is too is the interviews, the public forum. I question how much time potential, and I'll use that very strongly, potential candidates would, want to be, I mean, and what's the timeline between the interviews and the public forum? And the other thing is, again, you know, now you've got three people, they all know, now they're looking at each other facing off.
You might get nobody.
You might get, at that point, you might get nobody.
Yeah.
You know, you might chase them all out because
Especially
they may want
when
confidential.
They want to make all their background public.
Well, and that's, but.
I don't think you can.
Again, I think there's some legality there as well, but my other thing is, you know, I mean, now you're sizing up the playing field if they all back down because they think they got a bigger hand of cards coming behind them, where are these people coming from? It's not like it's going to be a 20-minute drive. I mean, it's going to be a flight in on their dime and or our dime. You know, how much do they want to expend to again, strongly used potential position? So I don't know how practical that would be, again. Just me thinking on the other side of the coin, that's all. But I don't, again, I myself personally don't feel that if somebody wanted to say, you know, what I want to see in a police chief is X, Y, Z, I don't think that's a bad thing that we should ignore at all. So.
I think it's a good idea to have them come in and written suggestions. 'Cause
Written
like you said,
suggestions, oh, yeah.
A public forum, like you said, is to wherever these candidates come from. You know, we don't have the time. Well, they may not have the time to schedule it, have a forum in here, and we've got two this night, but so-and-so couldn't make it, come another couple weeks.
Yeah,
I mean,
and next thing you know,
it's
we're
gonna
pushing out to October. I mean, it's you know.
I think in the idea of brevity, to have them do written.
But I do want to hear, you know, if you know, I guess I myself don't remember, but I guess there was an incident at Langtot's when I was young that I was scared of the police chief. Oh, I wouldn't want my kids scared of the police chief. You know, he didn't. He didn't want to. I guess I don't remember what the guy's name was. He didn't want to talk to me, and I was scared of his gun, and he didn't really give me the warm fuzzy feeling. So I don't want our children to have that.
No,
to
I
have
mean,
that. You know,
I think we had that.
Yeah,
I think
you
we've
wanted
had
to
that
feel
discussion with
comfortable.
MRI already. That
Right,
they wanted-
right.
I
That's
mean,
part of the
I-
criteria we.
But I think that would be, you know, again, that would be something if you know, if a resident wanted to voice that opinion, then let's do that, you know. Again, they're the one footing the tab.
Yeah,
That's it.
well, yeah, I kind of agree with that in some instances, but, I mean, we've never had other department heads interview or give out what they'd like to see in a certain other department head.
Well, they got to work with them. I mean, they work with them on a closer basis than we do, and and they interact a lot more in very high stress situations. So it's a good idea.
I understand, but we've never done it.
Well,
no, but doesn't say we
I
shouldn't
mean,
start
I-
now.
say we shouldn't. A lot of departments, a lot
Okay.
of places, they do that. They have
right.
they have other department heads.
And again, I don't think.
I mean, I can understand where you would say that. I mean, like with the
But to
fire
have them-
department, certainly the first thing you'd want to say.
Have them put some input in, you know, just a written suggestion to see how that would go. I think would be a very viable thing, you know, to see how. It doesn't mean that they have
I
to
think-
sit in an interview, but I mean, turn around at least put in what their thoughts would be.
But keep
Just
in
like
mind, you know, I'm sure this is looking to be ground setting for Chip's job too. They're gonna want the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. No, I know, but
I know, that's what I'm saying. And if you're going to do it for one, you're going to have to do it for everybody. That's the
department.
same thing.
And I think that's
I
probably,
think you're right.
you know, to get suggestions from another department head, what they're looking for to interact with, or what they would like to see, or how they would like
mean,
to
for all-
work with them, I think is not
Wouldn't
a.
that be
And then you get
something more
7
you would have
answers.
after the fact?
Then you get 7 questions.
7 different
seven
answers.
different
Yeah.
answers.
I mean,
Yeah.
for all,
Hire 7 people.
for all we know, maybe one of the ones would be, you know, put the toilet seat down. I don't know.
Yeah, so you don't know.
I hope so.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, maybe that's one that one would want to see. I don't know.
We don't know until we ask.
Right, but you got to put the questions out there to get them answered. So again, but I think it would be a very vague question. It would just be a simple submission, not looking for a narrative, not looking for a novel.
Well, it's more like a suggestion. What,
Yeah,
were, you,
more
what
like-
were you looking for in a to work
What
with?
would you look for in a police? And I don't think that you know any position it would be out of the realm. I think even the
Somebody you can work with.
Any department.
hey, that's good. Hey, you know, somebody that listens. I don't know, just a thought. That's all. Again, to get the input, but again, it's not. I think with the process has been pretty, affirmative on how we want to go about it. But I don't see the problem in taking in comments and suggestions.
Or just general.
And it might be something that we didn't, that
we
sparks
don't
an
think of,
that
yeah.
sparks a question in our mind.
Maybe it's just something we missed, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how to facilitate that. I don't know if it'd just be a thing on the, maybe on the town website and just a blanket email out there. And, you know, just a, you know, email, I don't even care if they come to me, whatever.
We have an office at weare.nh.gov.
Right. So if they just go into that and, you know, copy and paste it onto a letter, I mean, onto a piece of paper, and that way there, A, we may not know who did it, and B, we have them. Just a thought.
And you may end up getting 8 or 10 questions, the same from 8 or 10 people, so you can just, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, just put hash, you know, just to.
Yeah.
Combine them, like, put
Yeah,
them all.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Or how many occurrences we got of that one.
Right.
So, that's all I had.
I have had several conversations with town people, town residents, and comments that I've heard, probably a 8 or 10 at least here in the last, since voting, was that a lot of the people are concerned about their taxes, what they're going to be. And these people that were asking, you know, talking to me about it, all voted. And, you know, they're going to vote, they feel like one couple considering maybe having to sell their house and move out of town if the taxes are going to be jumping $500 or $600 out of whack. It's just too much for them to handle on Social Security in that instance. But another person who is probably early 40s is also concerned, single mother, raising a family, and they're concerned about the amount of taxes and how, you know, one comment was whether we should allow all those articles to go on in 1 year. And because it affects everybody, even if you're voting, it's affecting you whether you wanted them all or not, and maybe we should be looking at holding back and only putting on so much, 200, an increase if everything passes of 200 or 250 a year versus 500 or 600 a year or more.
And
I don't know how you do that, but
I don't either. And what,
Not
you know,
putting the articles on, I guess. You don't allow as many articles on the warrant.
Right.
Because if they pass,
yeah,
we've got,
we can't do anything
you
about
know,
it.
we're
Right.
mandated to do that, so.
I mean, I had a conversation with a resident, same thing, kind of. You know, I guess my take on that is, we've run the town so frugal for so many years, and that's our job, and don't take that away from us. But I think it's starting to catch up to us. The town's growing. You know, I mean, we just talked about Cortlandt Ave. How many houses are going in there? 14, 15?
14 or 15.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're coming with you know,
Have a lot of kids.
yeah, husband, wife, and
Some are not coming though. Some are leaving a house in Weare and staying in Weare.
Yeah.
some,
Right.
but not all, and bringing 2.5 kids and a dog.
I
And
was like that 2.5 kids. I don't know how they get
and
2.5.
that pushes the school system up. It pushes the
Taxes up?
Yeah.
Well, and again, it's all, you know, you look at it, it pushes the school up. Now they're moving into town, the population goes up, now you're taxing the services, you have another road that needs to be plowed, you have people that move in that are clumsy and need EMS, you have, you know, again, and who knows, you know, they speed down the road, they need the police or whatever. Again, it's a huge umbrella, and I'm not trying to take away the sentiment that you're putting forward as far as the,
I'm just trying to
you know, as far as, and because I can sympathize, I can completely sympathize.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I thought about that too, putting them forward, but anybody that's been around, you know, the DPW garage in the last few months, I'm sure if you know, if you got a hold of Benji and asked to go through and look at the state of the trucks, I mean, they're held together with patches on Band-Aids. You know, I mean, unfortunately, you know, we cross a bridge where it's in dire need that we need to have the truck. We've had one of our employees stuck 2 or 3 times now in our skid steer. And if that was an electrical fire, then where are we at? I mean, it's just there's certain things that, you know, I would agree with the fact of, but what do we cut from the town for vital services.
We've had three pieces of rolling stock at the highway department broken down, some of them all at the same time, and still, and then storm comes, so then.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not just saying
I know,
highway,
so I
I'm
mean,
just saying
but-
all of them.
But
No,
it's
but I
tough,
mean-
it's a tough decision to make.
But that was 1, 2, 3 right there. I mean, there was 3 capital I mean, there was the road bond, the reconstruction, the bridge, the truck, the skid steer. I mean, that's a good chunk of the tax rate right there, of why it went up. Well, bond next year, but I don't disagree.
No.
But on the other side of it too is the demand for services is increasing relative to the influx of population growth.
And the demand to fix the infrastructure, predominantly the
Well,
roads. We've had
and the
that
infrastructure is falling apart.
falling apart.
You know,
Because we've
so I don't
lived
know.
on a
Yeah,
default
I
budget.
don't know what the answer is, I'm just
Didn't have the money to do
relaying
it.
what people are saying.
It wasn't the fact that we were on a default budget. People voted no on warrant articles.
A lot of warrant articles.
Right, and that's the other thing too, is no means no, and I don't, again, I'm 100% behind the process, no means no. If the town people say we don't want, then we don't want. I completely agree 110% with Mr. Campana about the fact that here we have 6,000 voters and 1,500 make the decisions.
Right.
You know, I
6,000 voters and 96 people come, and 60 of them are your employees.
Right. So I
That's a ballot.
completely agree. I'm floored that more people don't take interest for the amount of time it takes out of your day, once a year or twice a year, to come and see how your town's run and how your taxes are formulated. It baffles me. I mean, and there's only so much that the Board of Selectmen can do. As far as, just short of having an officer stand out there and turn everybody right into the school.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it's, I don't know. I mean, I put a thing on my Facebook page, get out and vote, come on out today, you know? I want to see people vote. I want to see people exercise their rights, and I want to see people exercise their opinion on what they want for their town.
And if you look, actually, the people that voted this time, as compared to some of the past, was above.
Yeah, we were above. I mean, usually we get 12 to 1,300, and we got 1,500 voters out this time.
Right.
But it's still
But it's still
disappointing.
not, yeah, it's still disappointing.
It's still disappointing to see that little of turnout.
Right.
For the registered voters in this town.
Yeah, you're right.
So I, like I said, I completely sympathize, and I know that, that's been brought up multiple times, but again, where do you draw that fine line? And I guess that is a difficult decision that this board have to make, as far as what we bring forward, and that also with the roles with the CIP committee. They have the same task as we do at that point, but it rolls back to, what do you cut?
Yeah.
Where do you stop? I think the fire department is a little on the side because of their funding methods for their vehicles and equipment. But all the other departments, I mean, the town's growing, the demand's growing. It's if the population was going down in town, then absolutely I would feel 100% behind cutting warrant articles off.
It doesn't matter. I mean, the fire department, we're still paying.
Correct, for wages and operation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the money they bring in.
Right, but that covers the major equipment purchases and the fire trucks as seen in this warrant article.
Right.
I'm sorry, this warrant with the 3 items that they had on there.
Camera, the boat, and truck.
The cameras, the boat, and the truck.
But if that money went into a general pool, how much of that stuff would have, maybe all of it would have passed this year, maybe only part of it would have passed.
Maybe none of it would.
Maybe none of it would have.
None of it. I mean, I don't know.
But that's been proven in the past that the fire truck didn't pass for 3 years. The money was there.
Yeah.
The latest one we have.
Yeah.
So it's, again, I don't know what the answer is to that, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah.
And there is hard decisions that happen here. As far as financially.
I just feel bad for people when they
I-
tell me
I
they're
do.
probably going to have to put their house up for sale and move out of town because they don't know how much longer they're going to be able to pay their taxes.
And I
feel
agree
bad.
100%. I feel the same sentiment. I do. But again, I mean, we look at the other side of it as far as, we see what goes on in all the departments, and sometimes, unfortunately, things have to be purchased. I'm hoping for the year that we don't have to buy anything.
Oh, it'd be
I'm
wonderful.
really hoping for that, but I don't foresee it in the future. Something's always going to be broke. I mean,
Maybe we'll have smaller capital outlay.
and that would be beyond exciting for me.
If we play, if we play enough catch-up and get it so you get into a regular rotation with some of this stuff, yes. it'll
Have
be-
less, you wouldn't have to maybe every
Like,
other
okay,
year
like
instead
the
of every
trucks,
year.
you may be every other year or every, or, that was
Mm-hmm.
one of the things with the cruisers, every
Yep.
other,
So that
every
was
other
the
year
thought
buy
with the
one.
cruisers, that's,
You buy a truck, you don't buy a cruiser or.
Or,
Yeah, you do flip-flops.
yeah, you do
Back
it
and
off,
forth.
off years,
But again, this is,
We still have a capital outlay coming, not too far down the road for another fire truck.
yeah. Well, that's but that's purchased from that revenue
Gonna be
fund.
per-
So
but I
it's-
mean,
yeah.
what doesn't come from there may have to come from.
Well, I think it'll be. I think
You'll
it'll be.
You'll have enough money.
You'll have enough
Think
money.
you'll have enough money?
But
Well, you always.
But I mean,
Sure.
we look at the other thing is too is I think we're putting small fires out as we go here. I mean, we still have a town hall that's falling apart.
Yeah.
I don't care how you cut how you cut it. I mean, the
right.
rot is still getting away from us.
Yep.
So
I didn't know if they were done.
so, but we got a town hall that's still rotting out over there, and again,
has to be
with these
addressed.
little spot fires, we put a thumb on it. We hope for the best, but. I mean, this place, I mean, no, I hate to say it,
Blow it
but
up.
you look at the front of it, and, you look at the front of the town cover and what it was to what it is now, and it's like, wow, what happened?
Embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's almost an embarrassment, but again, we
Yes.
do what we can with what we have for
And
funding.
Then again, you gotta look, we're not the only town in that boat either.
Oh, we are not. We're not. And please don't think that I'm thinking that we're the only one saying that, because we're not. We are
It's
definitely
just the
not.
time, it's just the way things go, and
I
unfortunately.
truly think that we're gonna have to look at getting a grant written, write a grant or
Yeah, we
whatever
need to
for
do
the
more
town
grant
hall.
Yeah.
To
Oh,
get
abs-
some of the basic outside fix,
Yeah.
because, I mean, to do what really needs to be done over
Oh,
there.
you're talking half a million or more.
Oh, you're talking
Yeah.
a couple million.
Yeah.
To pull that up and
Yeah.
structurally fix all of that?
Yeah, yeah, it's substantial money. So, like I said, we do what we can. We hit the spot fires, but again, I think some of this is again, the truck, the skid steer, stuff like that, which are big capital purchases.
Right.
I mean, it's a
Next
2,000.
year, you're gonna.
Have a truck again, probably
Yeah,
dump
we
truck.
talked about maybe doing 2 big ones and a small one and lease it over 5 years or something.
These purchase over 5 years.
I don't know. I mean, you
That's-
spent 6 years not buying one, so.
Mm.
now
But I
you're
mean,
paying for it.
yeah, that's another thing, sometimes with these bigger rigs, which a lot of towns have done. I know they've done it, well, we've done it with a grader and a loader, but sometimes with a big rolling stock, you can do the 5-year lease purchase, and at the end of the, you
But
buy
you gotta
it.
keep in mind.
But you gotta buy it for a
added-
buck.
You just added another large payment.
Payment
Yeah,
That's right, to every year.
per year.
For the next
Right.
Yeah,
5
your
Yeah.
debt
years.
service.
Approximately 40 cents.
Is it as
Yeah.
big
Next
as,
10 years.
is it as big as putting it out in one fell swoop? That's,
Yeah.
so you gotta look
Yeah.
at it, so.
yeah. So, all right. Well, I think we've ridden that horse for quite a while. And again, I just wanted to bring a couple things up before we closed. When do we want to do within our own the election of the chair and vice chair?
You can do it today if you want.
Will I do it today?
It's up to you guys.
Okay.
Are you looking to change it?
That's a good question. I have no problem sitting here.
I don't see any
Fine
sense
the way
in
it is.
changing.
I think it's fine. Yeah.
Well, there it is. Answer's done.
So your board's gonna remain the same?
Yep.
How about committees? Anybody gonna change any of the committees?
You guys can stay where you are committee-wise?
I'd like to.
I'd like to.
Yep, me too. I'll stay with the planning board.
Okay. Well, that was nice and easy. I like that. Mm-hmm.
Makes it more convenient.
Now you just got to chase me down every Wednesday to do the agenda.
I know where to find you, don't worry. Find you when you don't wanna be found.
That's right.
1-800 New Hampshire Yankee.
Yeah. Yeah. So, any other business be brought forward before the board?
Just one thing, I'd just like to thank the voters for their support again this time for my reelection.
Awesome.
I'll try to be worthy of their confidence.
All right. Good?
That's it.
Yeah.
I move to
Thanks.
adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Have a good night.